My 6-year-old niece in Ohio takes a pill every morning before school for anxiety. My mate's 6-year-old daughter in Sydney takes a piece of Vegemite toast and walks to school by herself. Same age, same year, two completely different childhoods. And after living here in Australia for the last few years, I think I finally understand why. I'm Yemo, I'm an American, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 7 specific things Australian families do differently that are quietly producing some of the least stressed kids in the developed world. I'm going to show you the school rule at number 4 that would get a principal fired in Texas. I'm going to break down the lunch program difference that saves Aussie parents around $24,000 per child compared to American families. And I'm going to tell you about the conversation I had with a grandmother named Margaret at a school fete in Newcastle that genuinely made me question every assumption I grew up with about what childhood is supposed to look like. But the part that actually shook me, the part that I almost cut from this video because I wasn't sure I could explain it properly, comes near the end. It's about something I noticed at a primary school in Canberra during a normal Tuesday pickup. It took me about 20 minutes standing at that gate to realize what was missing. And once I saw it, I couldn't stop seeing it everywhere I went in this country. So let's start with the number that started this whole thing for me. According to a 2024 report from the American Psychological Association, around 42% of American teenagers report persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. The equivalent Australian figure, drawn from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, sits significantly lower, and when you isolate primary school age kids, the gap gets even wider. Aussie kids, on average, report better sleep, more outdoor play, and less academic pressure than American kids of the same age. And if you're an Aussie grandparent watching this right now, your grandkids are growing up in what might genuinely be one of the saner childhoods left in the Western world. That matters, because in 12 years, those grandkids are the ones who will be deciding whether you stay in your home or go into care. Calmer kids grow into more capable adults. This is not abstract. This touches your life. All right, let me give you the 7 things. And I'm going to start small because the small ones are the ones that snuck up on me. Number 1, the school day is shorter. A standard Aussie primary school day runs roughly from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, with 2 proper outdoor breaks built in, recess, and what they call big lunch. American elementary schools, by contrast, often run longer, with shorter and sometimes indoor-only breaks. I have a cousin who teaches 3rd grade in Indianapolis. Her students get 15 minutes of outdoor time, total, per day. My mate's kid in Brisbane gets close to 90 minutes outside. That's not a small difference. That's 2 completely different nervous systems being built. Number 2, homework is genuinely lighter. The New South Wales Department of Education's homework guidance for primary school is essentially this: reading, a bit of practice, and that's it. No ESAs, no piles of worksheets, no Sunday night meltdowns at the kitchen table. I asked my neighbor Dave, who's got 2 kids in year 3 and year 5, how long homework takes in his house. He laughed at me. He said, "Mate, 20 minutes tops, and half of that's just a reading log." Compare that to American friends of mine whose 10-year-olds are doing 2 hours of homework on a school night. 2 hours at 10 years old. Number 3, uniforms. And I know this one's controversial, especially with the American audience, but hear me out. Aussie kids wear a uniform from kindergarten through year 12 in most schools. It's not a status symbol. It's not designer. It's a polo shirt and shorts that cost about $60 for the year. In America, kids are picking outfits at 6 years old to avoid being mocked at 7. Aussie parents I've spoken to almost universally say the same thing. The uniform takes one entire category of childhood anxiety and just deletes it. There's no morning argument. There's no social hierarchy at the school gate. Everyone shows up looking like they belong. Now, before I get into number 4, which is the one that genuinely surprised me the most, I want to mention something my American sister said when she came to visit last year. She watched my mate's kids walk themselves to school, and she said, out loud, "Oh my God, is that legal?" And we'll come back to that question, because the answer says more about America than it does about Australia. Number 4, this is the school rule that would get a principal fired in most American districts. In a huge number of Aussie primary schools, kids are not allowed to bring phones to school. Full stop. Not in their bags. not in their lockers, not on silent, not at all. The state of Victoria banned mobile phones in all government schools back in 2020. New South Wales followed. South Australia followed. The result, according to the schools themselves, has been almost immediate. Less bullying, more conversation at recess, better focus in class. Try implementing that in a suburban American school district. The lawyers would arrive before lunch. Aussie parents shrugged and said, "Yeah, sound about right. My kid doesn't need TikTok at age 9. And that cultural difference, that quiet refusal to let a 6-year-old be marketed to like an adult, is doing more for kids' mental health than any therapy app ever will. If you've got kids, grandkids, or you're just trying to understand why Aussie families seem to be doing this differently to the rest of the West, hit subscribe. That's a big chunk of what this channel covers. I'm an American who moved here. I've got family on both sides, and I'm trying to figure out, honestly, what Australia is getting right that the rest of us missed. So if that's the conversation you want to be part of, I'd love to have you along. Number 5, the cost. And this is where Aussie grandparents really need to pay attention, because I think a lot of you don't realize how absolutely insane the American comparison has become. Public school in Australia is genuinely public. There's a small voluntary contribution, maybe a couple $100s a year, in uniforms and excursions, and that's it. In America, even public school comes with fees. Sports fees, activity fees, technology fees, bus fees, and then the lunch. American school lunches are not free in most districts. They cost between $3 and $5 per day per child. Multiply that by 180 school days. Multiply that by 12 years. Multiply that by 3 kids. You're looking at over $24,000 per family, just for the privilege of feeding your kids at the school they're legally required to attend. In Australia, you pack a sandwich. There's no shame in it because everyone packs a sandwich. The Prime Minister's kids pack sandwiches. That's just how it works. Number 6, and this is where the personal stuff starts coming in for me. Aussie kids walk. They walk to school. They walk to the shops. They walk to their mate's house. There's a concept here called the walking school bus, where a group of parents take turns walking a chain of kids to school together. I watched this happen on my own street in Sydney. 6 kids, 2 parents, 1 dog, 20 minutes of fresh air, and chat before 9 in the morning. In America, that's now considered borderline neglectful in a lot of states. There have been cases, real, documented cases, of American parents being investigated by child services for letting their 9-year-old walk half a mile home from a park. In Australia, that 9-year-old is riding her bike to netball practice with her own house key in her pocket. And before anyone says, well, Australia is just safer, I'd push back gently on that. Statistically, both countries are safer than they were 30 years ago. The difference isn't crime. The difference is what parents and grandparents are willing to allow. Australia kept its nerve. America lost it. Now I want to slow down for a second, because around the time I was working through all of this in my own head, I went to a school fete at a primary school just outside Newcastle. Sausages on the barbie, cake stall, the whole thing. And I got talking to a grandmother named Margaret. She'd raised 3 kids in the 80s, and now she had 4 grandkids in the school. I asked her, honestly, do you think things are harder for your grandkids than they were for your kids? And she paused. She actually thought about it for a long time. And she said, no, love. I think the world's harder. But the school's the same. The teachers are the same. The walk home is the same. The sausage sizzle is the same. We didn't let it change. And that one sentence, we didn't let it change, has been ringing in my head for about 3 months now. Because that's the thing. Australia hasn't fixed childhood. Australia just refused to break it. Which brings me to number 7, the strongest one, and the one I think every Aussie watching this already knows in their bones, but maybe hasn't put into words. The expectations on Aussie kids are different. Aussie kids are not being raised to win. They're being raised to be all right. There's no 10-year-old in a tracksuit being driven 3 nights a week to elite squad training while her mom cries in the car about the fees. There's no 8-year-old being prepped for a private school entrance exam. There's a tall poppy culture. And yes, I know it has its downsides. I know it can flatten ambition. I know that's a real critique. But for childhood, specifically, it acts as a shield. It tells a kid, you don't have to be exceptional. You just have to be a decent person who shows up. And that, more than any policy, more than any school rule, more than any cost difference, is the thing I think is genuinely producing calmer kids. The pressure isn't there. The pressure was never put there because the adults around them decided, collectively, that it didn't belong in childhood. So, the thing I almost didn't put in this video. The Tuesday afternoon at the school in Canberra, I'd gone to pick up the daughter of a friend. I got there about 10 minutes early, and I just stood at the gate and watched. Kids running, kids climbing on the bag racks, a teacher leaning against a wall having a chat with a parent, a grandfather with a Kelpie waiting at the fence. And I stood there for about 20 minutes before I realized what was missing. There were no security guards. There was no metal detector. There was no fence designed to stop a shooter. There was no lockdown drill scheduled for that afternoon. There were no kids with that specific tightness around the eyes that American kids have now. That thing where they've practiced hiding in a classroom closet so many times it's just part of being 7. It was just a school with kids who were not afraid. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had to walk back to the car and sit in it for a minute. Because I grew up in a country where the phrase active shooter drill is something a kindergartner knows. And I'm now living in a country where it's not. And the kids can feel that. They might not be able to articulate it, but their bodies know, their nervous systems know, and that more than the uniforms, more than the homework, more than the lunch, more than the phones, is the answer to the question this video started with. Aussie kids are less stressed because Aussie adults didn't outsource their childhood to a market. They didn't outsource it to a screen. They didn't outsource it to a fear. They kept it. They protected it. And in doing so, almost without noticing, they built something the rest of the Western world is now looking at and going, hang on, how did you manage that? I think most Americans, deep down, would hate hearing this. Not because it's wrong, because it's true, and because admitting it means admitting something about the country they raised their own kids in. And I think a lot of Aussies watching this don't realize how rare what you've got is. You think it's normal. It's not normal. It's the exception. It's the version of childhood the rest of us are quietly grieving. I want to hear from you on this one. Honestly, if you're an Aussie grandparent or parent, tell me in the comments what you see your grandkids doing that you don't think American kids get to do anymore. The walking, the unsupervised play at the park, the Saturday morning footy with no parents screaming on the sideline. Tell me what you're seeing, because I might be wrong about some of this. I'm an outsider. I've only been here a few years. There are things I'll miss. But this is what it looks like from where I'm standing, and I want to know if I got it right. I'll leave you with this. My niece in Ohio is 6. My mate's daughter in Sydney is 6. One of them is on medication for anxiety. The other one is currently arguing with her dad about whether she can ride her scooter to the milk bar. I love both of them. I want both of them to be all right. But only one of them is being allowed to just be 6. I covered the other side of this. The part about why Aussie retirees seem less anxious than American retirees in another video on this channel. And honestly, it connects directly to what we've just talked about. Because it turns out that the same country that protects its kids tends to protect its old people too. It's the same instinct. It just shows up at different ends of life. I used to think this was a story about schools. Then I thought it was a story about parenting. Now I think it's a story about a country that quietly, stubbornly, without making a fuss about it, decided that childhood was worth keeping. And once you see that, you really can't unsee it.